here's where I want to start actually. Before honor, I'm not avoiding it. But I will say it's May 1st. It is a special month for the Asian community right now. Um, so I just want to say, happy Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, everybody. This is our,
Yeah.
this is literally always the one of the first streams of the month for Asians Represent. So I'm really happy that we get to do this together. What we're gonna do is this month we're gonna take all of our earnings from Twitch. And we're gonna donate it to a charity at the end of the month. We've got a couple of things planned. This group, we're going to be doing something later this month. We haven't announced it yet on social media, but we are going to make Fish in the Fog a reality. It is going to be a real thing. We're going to do a D&D 5e one-shot set in Kara-Tur.
Well, sort of.
In KaraTur.
Sort of set in Kara-Tur. Our plan is to basically for it to be, like satire and entertainment.
It's gonna be like wholesome absurdity. Like it's almost in the style of like how Hot Fuzz like parodies action movie stuff.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Yes.
In the sense that it's like celebrating some of the best potential, but also developing a lot of like dropping a lot of social critique.
I don't know if we're gonna cover the best potential, especially with what we picked.
I think it's more likely to just be silly.
I mean, I think the best potential is just a bunch of people coming out every day to stare at WA and let them know that, to stare at WA and just like, and just be like, we see you. We see you.
When I was talking to the company that we're going to be doing this with, they were like, wait, that's how you want to open the adventure with? And I was like, yeah, it's in the book.
Good luck.
So I'm super excited because I think it's going to be one of the coolest things if we could pull it off. I think it's going to be one of the coolest things that we've ever done. It's certainly going to be one of the coolest things I've ever been involved with. I think in terms of like from like a production perspective to just like the concept, I think this is just super fun. It's going to happen at the end of the month. It won't be hosted on this Twitch channel. It will be hosted on another one. But follow us on social media and you'll find out when it happens. I'm super excited. We've got a couple things in the pipeline this month. We're actually going to be playing a session of Austin's game, Valor, and I'm super excited because we actually get to fulfill a prophecy that we made on the podcast years ago when we did an episode on the magical girl genre. And we were like, oh, what if we actually did an actual play of this? And it never happened, but it will happen this month for a good cause. So
I think I've got this is going to be a magical boy in this. So,
okay, sweet.
Still extremely valid.
Still extremely valid. But we are doing an anime themed charity stream this month as well. I'm super excited. We're gonna put that out on socials as well. So stay tuned. I think that's it for it. No. There's one other announcement. One of us has a Kickstarter live right now.
Yes, they do.
Oh, I do. That's right.
I'm trying to
look,
Jacky, you have to stop making bulgogi at 5 a.m.
Jacky, I'm out here trying to help you, and I thought,
sorry,
and I'm trying to help you.
Thank you.
And
I
thought you froze.
He's like, who has Kickstarter?
Jacky's like,
I was just staring at Jacky, just like,
come on.
So yeah, on Kickstarter right now, you can look up Eldritch Sands. It is a 5e campaign setting. It's basically deeply inspired by 70s and 80s sci-fi, and it's also a post-apocalyptic arcanopunk, which is basically think of magic mech suits, a desolate wasteland, and a dome city full of neon lights and steel. So And I will say this: the project leader was deeply inspired by Bubblegum Crisis. So if anyone's watched that anime, the original one,
Oh my god!
Oh boy.
Wow,
Not
that's
any of the
a
spin-off-
deep cut.
Please ignore all the Bubblegum Crisis spin-offs, OVAs, because we don't talk about those. They don't exist. We only watch the original one here.
Bubblegum Crisis has some banging music for like
They
80s,
do.
80s
Yeah.
rock
Yeah.
aesthetic. It is.
Yeah.
Now, Jacky,
when-
will this Kickstarter? Is there a stretch goal for a soundtrack?
I have no idea. I'm not the one running it, but I can definitely ask because there are some stretch goals. But I will say that I am also one of the key writers. So it's me and Alex as the key writers. I'm the one who handles all the lore and atmosphere. So I get to write weird eldritch tech. So it's going to be fun.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Well, even though you didn't respond to our initial like somebody's got a Kickstarter, you were like all the details right there. So we just needed to get you going, but that's because
It's the late night bulgogi delay.
yeah, you spent way too much time marinating.
It's a
beef.
5 a.m. bulgogi. Too much time
but
grinding
bulgogi is
Asian
important.
pears.
It's very important.
Somewhere there is a character in this campaign setting that's just making bulgogi constantly. Ooh,
I don't
Yeah,
think
that's
it's
gonna-
with-
maybe
That's
it's a
gonna be
character.
okay. I'm just gonna make this character. This is now an NPC in Fish in the Fog.
Amazing.
There's just one
Excellent.
person just making bulgogi all the time.
But I guess they'd have to be from Koryo.
Well, then they come from Koryo.
Oh
and
no,
just,
because Koryo is actually mentioned in the second paragraph that we are about to read.
Oh boy.
Oh, here we go.
Segue.
Welcome to Asians Read KaraTur, everyone.
Heyo.
Where
Heyo.
we slowly, deliberately make our way through the AD&D KaraTur, the Eastern Realms campaign setting.
Deliberately.
I say deliberately, like a lot of attention is paid to each and every word. And the nonsense that they spew, but also some of the good things. We're not just here to, criticize this book. There is a lot to criticize, but there is some interesting stuff, and there is a lot of potential here. So, we finally made it past the geography. Past the rugged mountains of Arakan and the brews of Tsingtao. I can't believe I said that. Oh god.
I think though, because I kind of looked at the table of contents, I think we've only made it past the geography of Shou.
Yes, we're past the geography of Shou, and now we have made our way into an odd section because it kind of flows from the Shou geography into, I guess, the culture of Shou, without like a chapter break or really a new heading or anything like that. It literally goes from one location, Arakan, to the spirit of the Shou. Every episode, I make a prediction on how far we're gonna get.
sometimes we meet that prediction.
I'm gonna
One
say
time we met that.
One time we
One-
met
one
that
time.
prediction, and that was last
one
time.
time.
That's a fair point.
Always being
That's a fair
one
point.
time.
One time we met that prediction. I'm gonna say that we're gonna get one page. That's my prediction. Remember
Yeah,
one
that's
time I was like,
pretty
we'll get
standard.
through 10 pages. Didn't happen.
We're all like,
Oh,
Didn't
I
happen.
remember
In
that.
fact, we're only on page 16 of the PDF. So
yeah,
And how many pages are there again?
Honestly though,
a
like
lot.
a lot.
under promise, over deliver, right? So maybe we'll
Yeah.
get 2 pages.
Maybe we'll get 2 pages, but
Hopefully, well, maybe we'll get through show by the end of the year.
look, I
We
think
can
we'll
have
get
a show celebration.
I think we'll get through show by
Celebration.
Chinese Lunar New Year 2022. We'll get through all the
Yeah.
Chinese stuff. So I wanted to mention this because I had a very interesting interaction on Twitter yesterday. Nobody was. I was in our Discord server talking about this yesterday, but someone had actually. They're like I'll say this. They were a firm supporter of Asians Represent, right? Always shouting us out. They are an ally to Asians Represent. But they composed a tweet and tagged Wizards, and they said, "Hey, can we get a supplement with weapons from," and I'll say this, Kara-Tur, Asia, Maztica, and Zahara. And I think this is one of the issues that we see a lot in TTRPGs, and it's that we see people who say that, like, oh, Kara-Tur, it's fantasy. Asian people have no reason to be offended by it. And then we get people who say, oh, yeah, we need weapons from Kara-Tur, fiction, Asia, real life, Maztica, fiction, Zahara, fiction, who kind of conflate the two. So when we go through this campaign setting and when we, look through the content of this, yes, it is fantasy. But in the case of this book, it is so very much inspired by what white people think of Asia.
That conflation is very intentional too. They want you to draw that line between what their fiction and their reality, and do so with a degree of authority that they want you to feel like there's authenticity in this writing.
Yeah, and the authenticity is very much almost like barely superficial, right? You look at this page and you've got like the characters on the left side that are just, we've gone over that. We don't need to do that again. Agatha's shaking her head. Like you have the characters that are just kind of there for flavor. And then you have, well, a section like this: the spirit of the show, the stature of the show, the honor of the show. So, let's get into reading, because I am no longer going to put this off. Let's do it.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
It's happening.
The spirit of the show. The people of the Empire may be the most practical of all the lands. They are certainly the most cosmopolitan, being heirs to a culture spanning some 26 centuries. In art, music, classic literature, and government, the citizen of Shou walks the earth in absolute surety that he is part of the greatest civilization ever to grace heaven. And why should he doubt it? Was not the empire already 1,000 years old, when the first Kozakuran barbarian thought to dress himself in skins? Are not the great books of the sages the very model upon which the other writings in lesser kingdoms are based? Surely the unlearned savages of Koryo have never devised such an elegant language of written characters. And it is well known that the men of Wa dine upon raw fish rather than the 10,000 delicacies served in any inn of the empire. Are then the people of Shou to be blamed for a touch of self-satisfaction? Of course not. In science, the Shou have created wonders. Their books are printed with movable type. They make the sky blaze with rockets and firecrackers, and they fly through the air as do birds. In government, they are without comparison, and administering to many diverse peoples fairly and with honor. This enlightened government they have, on occasion, spread to other peoples of Kara-Tur. And while some may have had objection, I am reminded of vociferous commentary of a young monk I met once while journeying through Tibet. On a whole, few can doubt the splendor and justice of their far-flung empire.
Oh, nice.
So if you're just joining us and you're curious about the tone like of this, remember that this book, even though it isn't really written well, is written as a conversation from a dragon to a white wizard.
Yes.
Let's just put it that way.
And we were talking
But
white
not
wizard.
like
We're
a
not talking
Gandalf
about.
style white wizard.
Yeah, we're not talking Gandalf. We're not talking Saruman.
No.
Just a wizard
No.
who is white.
Just a wizard who is white. Well, that
Well, there's the direct Tibet allegory in case you missed it
Yeah,
elsewhere.
like I reminded of the time I totally met the Dalai Lama.
a Dalai Lama.
basically
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's like, so
also, yeah, go ahead.
it's like, oh, look at those, like, first of all, let's talk about, like, the fact that they're like, oh, the Japanese people eat raw fish.
Also, like, surely the unlearned savages of Koryo have never devised such an elegant language of written characters. I'm like, you made the yen. It's just the Y.
Yeah.
Like,
but I could see, like, if this was written from the perspective of, like, a really stuck-up.
It's written from the perspective of an Asian character, though.
But it's written from the
perspective. Yeah.
Sorry, Emma.
Is from Shou,
sorry,
right?
let's let Emma talk.
Okay.
It's written from the perspective of like an omnipresent, sort of omniscient character. So this isn't like, there's no such thing as objectivity. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I tell every class I ever teach that, like, take that like, idea and throw it out the window. It doesn't exist. But you know, it's not taking a very open and a thoughtful approach to things. It's hardcore into like unilineal evolution of societies. There's savagery and then there's civilization. Like, that's an old idea that needs to die.
And it's very much a product of the time in which it was written.
It's also, it's nationalist, but also I get, well, you keep saying like, this is supposed to be written from the perspective of a dragon. And I'm like, this doesn't sound like a dragon. This just sounds like a super nationalist person from Shou being like, look at our writing system. Look, those people from Wa eat raw fish.
We cook our
That's
food.
so weird.
Gross.
I think, the thing that everyone has touched on that also bothers me is the fact that it's taking a lot of real life Chinese xenophobia and racism, and then putting it like directly in like direct reflections of like the countries and cultures into this, again, fantasy supplement, and not addressing the problematic part of that at all.
Well, it's also
which
like...
is
No, go ahead, sorry.
So, and the thing is, like, there's two parts to this, right? Like, one side is if you want to just make a fantasy story where there are problematic elements, I mean, that's a different conversation where it's like, how do you address that properly and stuff? If it's just like a completely different thing that doesn't have reflections of real life, then it's like, okay, that's its own issue. But the thing is, they took real life things that real life people and cultures have experienced. Like, this kind of racism, it's like these kind of things are said, right? Like, it's not, that's, and then you just put it in here and you're like, fantasy, am I right? So you're basically perpetuating a racist attitude within this game that's supposed to be like, if you want to play in fantasy Asia, here's a bunch of fantasy racism that is actually a real life thing that you are now, if you're playing someone from a show, maybe this is the kind of attitude you should have, that's why it's so bad, because you're teaching people to be racist while also being like, but you know, it's just this fantasy land.
Yeah.
But also it's the 80s and maybe you don't know a lot about Asia. So this is your only contact. Like, because you're picking this KaraTur supplement. Like, that's why it's so bad.
There are so many layers of wrong to these to these like 3 paragraphs. Like, Agatha, you bring up the really good point. It's like they have basically written fantasy Chinese nationalism from a white lens. So, and it's just like, it's like, first of all, it's super problematic. And second of all, it's also like hella lazy. It's like, oh, yes, the Chinese have existed for thousands of years before all of these other people. And like, we have this paragraph here where they were like, first of all, the empire as is was 1,000 years old before the Japanese people thought to wear clothes? Like, that's absurd.
Like,
oh no, I think that one is the Mongolian people.
The Kozakurans are supposed to be Japan.
And so is Wa. Like, it's
and so is
a
Wa.
little all over the
There's
place.
there's two Chinas and there's two Japans.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Shou isn't the only fantasy China here as well.
Yeah.
So what were they doing before? They were just wandering around naked? Like,
I think maybe it's implied that. No, I feel like I'm giving them too much credit because I would be like, oh, maybe they're wearing like, vegetation and reeds and things like that. But like
very Garden of Eden aesthetic. Okay.
Yeah, a single lily pad, and shells.
And shells.
But like, yeah, it's like, and then the unlearned savages of Koryo, and like they could have never devised an elegant language like this. It's
also interesting that that there isn't anything about like the Western like cultures. It's all very region specific racism without like diving into, oh yeah, we're so much better than those like idiots in Waterdeep. Like they were crawling around with sticks while we made castles or something. Like
I would presume the assumption, just knowing what I know about the American perspective, is that the Far East didn't acknowledge the existence of the West before they were forced to, which is also not true, but it's something we even see today. Regarding the racism issue too, like as someone who read a lot of Dragonlance when they were a kid, that was a thing for Wizards properties or TSR properties in the 80s. Like they were detailed and like, I don't want to say loving, but like I'm having trouble coming up with a different word in how in depth they got into the racism in their fantasy worlds.
Yeah, there was quite a lot in Dragonlance.
Like it's very graphic, I guess might be a good word for it. Like Dragonlance comes to mind because like one of the main characters is a half-elf product of rape, and like this is this big angsty backstory, and it's kind of yikes.
What?
Hold up, Agatha, can you mute yourself?
Yeah.
Sorry.
But yeah, it's something I'm seeing just as we're going through these older TSR properties, is they were very committed to these portrayals of racism and racist ideas in their societies, and it's a thing. I'm not sure why they thought it was like the in vogue thing to do, but it's everywhere just looking at it.
I wonder if it's like they think it makes it more interesting
or like edgy.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm wondering, if it's like a Frank Miller kind of move.
It's kind of like that. I think from what I recall, for at least some of the thought philosophy, when I remember reading the different memoirs about it, from what I understand, it was the reason they invoked these kinds of things into the material is because they wanted to be as authentic of an experience as possible. And part of you just goes, do we really need it? Do we really want it? And there's that part where they will then argue, well, it existed in this like kind of setting because Gary was more focused on authenticity and the experience, and Dave was more about the story. And so Gary was all about really making sure that carried over all of those kinds of things about the experience and making it as real and authentic as possible, because that's how he felt about the way the game should have been ran. Right. And so it definitely lends here as to why a lot of the material early on for TSR was, there's always this undercurrent of bioexistentialism and race and the racism as well, or at least in his purview, the conflict of the different races, because some of it got carried over from other pieces of inspiration, like because a lot of D&D is inspired also by Tolkien, and there's also like a little bit of that carried over as well. So,
but it's like the only plot driver they seem to be able to employ is like hatred and like racial conflict.
yeah,
because like that's we just read all of these different regions within Shou alone that also hate each other and have major stereotypes about each other. So then they also hate everyone else outside because Shou in general is better. It's like, all right, that's kind of a thing in reality, but also didn't really. There's not enough here to do that.
Yeah, if you're going to address really big, tough issues like of systemic oppression or like racism, sexism, etc., it should be handled, I think, with a mind towards empathy, and instead of being clever, which is what I think is really what's like. There's a tone of like condescension and disdain that and a sense of like one-upmanship here that is, I think, supposed to be authentic to the writer and the supposed author of this text, but just comes across as being cheap and shallow, right? There isn't, I mean, we could take any one of these statements and literally write, like, anyone who really wanted to dive into this could probably create like a whole thing that actually dictates, like, maybe there's like the wars between Shou and other lands that like create this sort of rivalry, this kind of impression, and maybe creates more of like an anthropological, sociological understanding of the conflict here. But instead it's just presented in an almost trivial manner. And I think, to your point, Agatha, about like how this is shown, it made me think like, oh, well, if we're going to present racism within fantasy in this trivial of a way, it kind of almost in real life creates a trivialization of racism itself. Like, oh, it's just a thing. Like when we look at other people and other races and the way they treat other people and other races, like, oh, that's just how they do things, without like devoting more critical thought.
I feel like it casts it too as an inevitability, like the idea that racism is just so ingrained in the human experience. And I mean, that was a prevailing attitude among a lot of white creators, we'll say, even through Avenue Q in the 2000s, which their whole thing with like, everyone's racist. Oh, well.
I want to touch on an insidious aspect of this, which is that when you present, again, to like a Western, mainly white audience, that all of these representations of marginalized people are already have racist stereotypes each other, it almost gives the reader a tacit permission to also be racist. Like, oh yeah, these are stereotypes that people have of them. They make fun of each other like that too, so I can do it because it's fine. And I feel like that is one thing that makes me very uncomfortable from the text as well.
Yeah, the worst part about that text is that a lot of the sentiment also makes me remind me of a lot of the things I've heard in my lifetime from Chinese people who are very xenophobic and racist. And I'm like, I've actually heard a lot of these kinds of similar stereotypes and analogies thrown in. And I'm just like, it's a little too accurate to a certain degree. And I'm really, really perturbed about it.
Yeah.
Why is this some of the most like accurate information we've encountered too? Like that's kind of scary when you think about it.
I feel like this is part of that, where I feel like because we've seen it through some parts of the text, it feels like somebody did consult with an actual, like, probably Chinese descended person, and I'm feeling like some of this got carried over when they were asking about like probably their experiences or presumptions about China, And
there are so many layers to that, though. I mean, like,
this could also just be based on historical perspective.
Yeah,
because to me this sounds more like court records from when China was the Middle Kingdom, you know, like at the core of it, and everyone else is just barbarians, because those words themselves are dated and not like 1980s dated. Like,
I think the thing though is that, like, when you look at these court documents and they say these things about these other nations, that doesn't make that isn't truth about the other nations, right? No. Much of this is propaganda. But here they're like, yeah, you know what? Like, when the Shou were already established, those folks in fantasy Japan, straight up barbarians, throwing the P word, primitive, right?
Yeah, oh God.
And it's like, Jacky, you mentioned the whole idea of like having a consultant or something like that. Here's the thing, and we see this so often in TTRPGs. It's that people want that who create Asian themed content, they want that Asian stamp of approval. So, you know, you hire a consultant, you listen to them, you give them the credit, and you really pick and choose what you want to do with their words. And that's the problem here with saying, like, you know what, you need a consultant, because what you actually need are creators and decision makers. And consultants are not decision makers in this industry. It's the sad part about this. And look, you know, they were writing this at the time when, you know, the internet wasn't really like a thing. You're using books, and we've already learned that they're using like Chinese menus.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And like, if you talk to like somebody of an older generation, this is something that we've talked about on the podcast too. Yeah, they're going to say shit about Japan, right? Because Japan invaded China. And there is some like real animosity there that is not just rooted in the 1930s and up, but is like there's a lot of historical conflict between all of these like three Asian nations, Korea, Japan, and China, right?
If they bothered to talk to a Vietnamese person, they would have gotten quite
Austin and I are just
China.
kind of
exactly right.
They're just kind of like over here, just like
right. So
things go way back.
Things go way back.
A lot of the feuds and wars, it's all from a long time.
Well, the thing is, like, that's just the history of the world.
Yeah.
Right? That's not unique to Asia. But the things that they've chosen to kind of cling to with these 3 paragraphs are like, Japan, barbarians. Korea, savages. First of all, this is just silly. But, you know, like, you go anywhere in Shou, you go to any inn, 10,000 delicacies on their menu.
Right. Yeah.
Did you notice
I
that?
believe this.
So first of all, for a fish in the fog,
why?
Michelle, I will be ordering delicacy number 1500.
Just like let me start taking notes.
Well,
Fish in the fog. Every inn has 10,000 things on the menu.
Yeah, a menu is literally a tome. It's a tome.
Yeah.
Everyone just gets like a freaking like encyclopedia set for their menu.
And then there's one character who's just like, I'm trying to eat my way through the menu.
Oh God. Yeah.
They're crying into their food every single day.
My character's from
90-year-old person.
Yeah, since my character's from Bawa, I am going to say that.
Oh, you're a tourist too.
Items, but none of my food.
Tourist.
Yeah, but you're a tourist, so maybe you're a foodie. You're like, oh.
There's a portrait. There's like a wall full of portraits of like older folks who have passed away attempting to eat through the entire menu.
This person made it to 9,999.
You see little numbers like you made it to 9,876.
Oh wait, is it using the terrible KaraTur script of numbering
system?
Oh my god.
So these posters are very large.
What a callback!
What a callback, Jacky.
Just a ton of like little things that no.
Yeah. And Monty in the chat also mentioned this, that sensitivity readers being used as a stamp of approval in just like fiction as well. Not just gaming.
Can I talk about this a bit from a business standpoint?
Yeah.
Like, just hire them as writers. You will probably save money. Just hire them as writers.
More people are
very
going to talk
easy.
about it in a positive light. you know what, like I made this joke like a while ago. I was like, what if we just made a rubber Asians represent stamp and just charged every time I touched stamp to ink. God, look, like
it's like that $50 to unblock thing on Twitter.
Look, like people like
50. I would have charged 200.
I would have charged way more. People turn to like the not just Asians represent, but the Asian community in general, and think that groups like us and creators like us are just like a tool that they can use to, make money off of fantasy depictions of our culture. It's like Agatha and I get emails or DMs all the time from people who are being like, "Hey, I've got this project. One of our freelancers is Asian. Can you talk about our stuff on your show?" Or like, "Hey, I want to come on Asians Represent because y'all have a big platform to talk about this thing." I'm like, "Is anything you do related to Asian culture? Are you Asian?" And they're like, "No." I'm like, "Then no." Like people see us as a way that they can profit off of our cultures. We see that right now with like Wizards of the Coast profiting off of, we won't talk about it much more, but profiting off of, Asian trauma and, abuse. And, like this kind of shit has to stop. And again, the way this shit can stop is if you have not just Asians, because this is a thing we see for all communities of color, really, is if we have like not just consultants, but again, creators and decision makers need to be involved in these processes. But let's move on. I read ahead, and
I need one more thing.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
And this is just like a minor thing that I've been fixating on, so just bear with me. But what bothers me about what follows in this section is that they start out in the first paragraph saying how cosmopolitan Shou is. And this is one of those I don't think that word means what you think it means.
Yeah.
Insert Inigo Montoya, I guess.
I was going to say insert Inigo Montoya right there.
Yeah, and if this is the most cosmopolitan and it's incredibly racist, that's a problem. Because cosmopolitan doesn't just mean living in a city or coexisting with, coexisting sounds nicer, like putting up with each other because you live in the same place. Now, cosmopolitan is a worldview that incorporates other places and other people. To be cosmopolitan is to think of others, not just...
You have to recognize the value that the diversity brings to your community.
Yeah, you don't just all live in the same place hating each other. That's not cosmopolitanism. So yeah, sorry, those might just...
No, this is probably an example of them sitting there writing with a big old thesaurus.
Yeah, they're like, they live in a city or they live in a diverse area, so they're cosmopolitan. It's like, there's more to it than that.
Yeah. People don't think about that. So let's move on to the next part. I read ahead, and while y'all were talking,
I also read ahead and was like,
I did too.
I saw you covering your mouth and looking concerned.
It's okay.
Dive right in.
Go for it.
The stature of the show. Because, anyway, I'll read it first. There are many races within the empire, but chief among these are the races of men. The men of Shoulung stand apart from those of the barbarian lands in being taller, fairer, and of more pleasing stature to the eye. They are a mixture of the many peoples conquered by the empire, and in this way have become a vital and muscular hybrid of unyielding vitality. From their northern ancestors, they gain the long, dark hair at which their women love to pile high upon their heads and affix with decorated pins. This same blood shows in the long mustaches and beards affected by the mandarins. From the south, they have learned the way of weaving bright silks and to make robes and garments of quality unmatched anywhere else in the lands. Also within the empire are those whom we call non-men. Though, by the will of the Son of Heaven, they are denied a place within the government. They are welcomed within the empire, where they face less of the prejudices and distrust found in other lands.
Just write this in for Fish in the Fog.
So,
God.
let's
Okay.
talk about that.
So the
fair.
first thing I thought of, so as we all know, I am a very big fan of farm documentaries. And
Yes.
yes. And the way they're describing the people here is exactly similar to the way they describe livestock. It's literally the same. Like, oh, let us examine the Shropshire sheep. Look at its fine haunches, its regal bearing, its fine wool quality. And I'm just like, this is literally the same tone, the same language. And it's so weird that the racism is just, it's there. And I understand what they're trying to say. Like, oh, and we've seen this before in previous paragraphs about the people who live in various regions of Shou. But once again, we see here like the stature, the complexion, etc. It really reminds me so much of, it's like they're describing people like chattel. And
it's dehumanizing.
It's dehumanizing. It reminds me so much of like those like pre like Civil War, just like those auction blocks with like when African folks were brought and enslaved and sold. It's like, this is literally kind of the same language.
A vital and muscular hybrid.
Oh yeah, the whole hybrid vigor thing.
The whole hybrid thing is just
Yeah, the hybrid bit, I was like, when I was reading it earlier, I was like, I saw hybrid and I was like, oh, we got there, all right. Oh boy, here we are.
It really does feel like we're talking about sheep and not people.
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Oh yeah.
Also,
You know what's also like really silly about this? It's like, oh yeah, you know what they got from northern China? They got hair. You know what they got from southern China? They got the knowledge of how to make silk. It's like, what the fuck?
And together we form a functional Asian person.
It's like the ingredients Voltron of Asian.
The ingredients to making an Asian person: hair and silk. Smash them together, and you've got the show.
Remember too, knowledge is racially inherent.
Yes, it is. And this is the thing too, right? We've seen them talk about the different like physiological differences across the different provinces, which when you get to this point, you're like, why is this section relevant at all?
Yeah.
Yep.
But also, like, hold up, gotta talk about how tall they are.
Yeah.
Also, mustaches.
Mustaches. You know?
And you know, you can go and you can still buy this book for $5 US on Drive-Thru RPG and give Wizards of the Coast money for this. It's a gold bestseller.
Yep.
It's a gold
you know what else
bestseller.
You know what else is a gold bestseller as of recently?
RPG.
That's right.
Okay, I would say this: gold bestseller. That's so many. Many.
I don't have too much else to say about this other than just yeet this into the sun and
this section just like, honestly, even from an editorial standpoint, it's like, this is redundant because you already, like I said, we covered the physiological differences already. Why is this here? There's no logic to this section other than the fact that you are literally trying to like create the most common denominator of a person from Shou using really nothing that tells you anything.
But they don't do this for any. They don't do this for any other book, right? It's not like, oh yes, you take the grace of a bird and the bark of a tree, and therefore you make an elf, or it's like you take the hardiness of the stone and the hair of a Shou and you make a dwarf. It's like you can't like what is this?
Oh,
exactly.
They are of a pleasing stature.
They're a pleasing stature to who? Oh yes.
To who?
Like why this dragon is just like, oh yes, I love the way the Shou look.
Now I'm just thinking of like the introduction of Powerpuff Girls, but with like the dragon instead of Professor X. It's like we combine silk
and hair. To make a vital and muscular hybrid of unyielding vitality. And it's just like, why is this section?
Yeah, I can't get over the livestock thing. Like, I noticed that, and I'm not an agriculture fan.
Yeah,
it's very, it's very, it makes me very uncomfortable. And
yeah,
and first of all, taller and fairer. Let's also talk about that, because let's talk about like Asian culture and like skin tone, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like fair skin, you know, sign of like wealth and privilege, right? Because, you know, grandparents, you don't have to go and work in the fields and all that. Like, I remember when I went on my first archaeological dig in like 2010, and I came home and I was tanned as fuck, right? And my grandparents were so unhappy, right? So unhappy.
Gosh. Yeah.
My mother would tell me I looked like a little Cambodian kid when I tanned in the sun.
Right? And it's like
my grandmother, my grandmother was like, I remember when I came back, and I'm just the same skin tone as I am now, and she's just like, but when you were born, when you just came out, your skin was so fair. And in my head, I'm like, yeah, I had been inside another person for 9 months.
Yeah.
I had not
you
seen
don't
the
have
sun.
sunlight. It's kind of how this works.
Yeah. And it's just like,
yeah,
to say
and
that
I was a swimmer for 12 years, and I had like super tan skin. I got so tan, like my grandparents told me I looked Filipino.
Yeah, but here's the thing. It's like, to say that every single person is fair skin in a land where they have very much stressed agriculture.
Yes.
Who's doing the farming then? Are they all
No
wearing
one,
like
apparently.
sunblock? Like, do they all carry like parasols? I feel like that's
I
sending.
think, you know,
I feel like
the
that's
rice
sending
hats-
energy into this, and I don't want to send that energy.
You know the
But
rice
they're-
hats? They're just
Those things are
really
great.
big.
I
just
picked
very
one up
big.
in Vietnam for when we were in the Mekong Delta. Those things are amazing.
They
They
are
are.
They're
They are
so
great.
light.
They're
Yeah.
light, and they work.
I couldn't
Yeah.
bring it home though because it was too unwieldy. But like, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely
I feel
recommend
that.
if you can get one of
Yeah.
those hats.
You can buy
But
it.
yeah,
Yeah.
what
just
make-
taking a side note to talk about how great those hats actually are is giving me life. It's just like, but those hats.
those hats though, they're great.
Those hats,
But
though, they're great. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Like, they just make them but bigger. And so when you see people in the farms of
Yeah.
Shou, it's just a bunch of large
just big
cones.
circles. Yeah.
Michelle, you saying that, I feel like you're sending energy into this book, and that will
I'm so sorry.
We're only 14 pages in. Like, this is
Yeah.
gonna happen now.
Yeah.
Oh, and Emma, did you have something?
Yeah,
you
I was
wanted
just
to-
gonna say, like, it's worth pointing out that even with proper sun protection, there are people who would never be described as fair, even if they never saw the sun ever. Like,
Yep.
the default human is not pale.
No.
So fairness can also be used to imply like a natural type of skin tone that is adverse to tanning in general. So like you have people that just burn or go pink. Like those
Yep.
people in the white world tend to be called fair. So there's not just a professional like are you out farming aspect of this, but also just a general like I don't know, deep fairness that could be implied here that bothers me even more.
Yeah, it's a combination of things. As someone who really likes skincare and who really has looked into the culture of East Asian skincare, there are definitely many different aspects of like brightening and like creating fairer skin and whitening creams out there that combine both the classist stereotypes that we see that are very much inherent within a lot of East Asian cultures and in South Asian cultures as well. Actually, this is a really big problem in India and Pakistan. And also just the trying to match Eurocentric ideas of beauty, right? So there's definitely there was a documentary I saw from Vice which talked about the dangers of skin whitening creams and skin whitening procedures that were not medically or government regulated. And the reporter who went over, she's a British tall white woman with blonde hair and blue eyes, and the Chinese woman that she was talking to said, well, I just want to be, when asked like why she's here at this clinic to get vitamin B like injected into her skin and a series of treatments, she said like, oh, I want to look like you, I want to look like you, the reporter. And the reporter's like, I think you look beautiful the way you are. But it is, once again, like introducing this, not only reinforcing this sort of classist stereotype, but also looking at the Western ideas of beauty and sort of putting those on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like the whole height thing here too, like to be
Oh,
tall
most
and
definitely.
fair as the epitome,
as a white person,
of attraction.
Yep. So let's move on. Let's move
Okay.
on
Yeah.
because
you guys to honor, because this certainly will not cause any kind of contention.
This cannot cause me to like facepalm even
can
more.
it get worse? I haven't read ahead to the honor section, so let's.
Can we say it like the way they say it in Mulan, like honor?
Honor.
Honor.
You will bring honor to us all. God, that movie sucked. The live action one.
It did.
No, not the
It
Chinese
did.
live action ones, but the Disney live
No.
action one really
Yeah,
sucked. They did my dude Jimmy Wong dirty with that movie.
Yeah, sorry, Jimmy.
Sorry, Jimmy.
But like, check out this first sentence.
Okay,
That first
fine.
sentence already was a bad. Was already.
Thanks, Emma, bringing us back.
Oh my god.
We're talking about Jimmy Wong. Okay.
You can tell everybody that we're
Okay,
clawing
so-
at the walls.
So, the Shou are a very honorable race of mankind.
Period.
I'm dead. They have great pride in their ancestors, their emperor, and their own good names. These they will defend with all their power, for to lose face is to lose everything. Okay, there are things that I really hate about this. The first thing that I really hate about this, I think the first sentence is just like a given to hate. The thing I really hate about this is that they very like flippantly say lose face is to lose everything without any context. And like
Yes.
and like for like and this very much shows me that they might have talked to a Chinese person about like what's important. They're like, yeah, losing face is like a bad thing, and they're like, okay, cool, move on. And they don't provide the reader with any context about what face means to Chinese people.
Yeah.
And it's like that bothers me so much because
Yeah.
in like Chinese culture there are like systems that bind social interaction with one another, like codes of like reciprocity and equity and how you appear to others. I'll say this, like I had a freelance gig that is going, I don't know if it's going to be announced soon, but it's a project that I'm super proud of. I'm really proud to have been a part of it. The team is honestly the most, aside from Unbreakable, the most diverse team I've ever worked with. It was probably one of the best working experiences I've ever had in TTRPGs in terms of professional, like how professional it was and how heard I felt. And it's like a sort of like a modern, something that's set in a sort of, that's like an urban fantasy thing. And I got asked to write the Asian factions in it. And I said, okay, I'm going to write this Asian faction, and I'm going to write all about the Chinese concept of face so that people understand what I mean. And the people in charge were like, go ham. And so when I see something like this, I'm like, this fucking sucks. Right?
Oh yeah.
Like, I don't know if anybody wants to take over while I like calm down.
I'll
Go Aga.
I have thoughts about it too, because the implication when you just read when you don't have prior knowledge of this kind of social structure and you read this, you're like, first of all, what does that mean? But also like, oh, okay, so people just care a lot about, they're just very shallow or very vain almost in a way about their reputation. And that's just like a mark of this culture, which is like you said, Daniel, like it doesn't go into any of the real life ramifications of like what face means, like the whole reciprocity thing. This is how you like get ahead. This is why you're bound to certain things that you might not want to do, but this is also how you can get help in times of need, where you otherwise might not get it. Like this, it's so ingrained into the culture. And yes, one side of it is like if someone is very obsessed with face, and then then their kids will have to kind of like deal with that, and that does suck. But at the same time, like it's so much deeper than that in terms of it impacts people's lives and what kind of choices they do and can make.
Yeah, and it's like honestly, we should do a whole episode on this of the podcast.
Face, oh my god,
we should do a whole episode because honestly, I think it's like an important discussion to have about like Chinese culture and how it has kind of impacted us and how people kind of portray it. But like face, first of all, is the way Chinese people see face is very unique. You don't see it in a lot of other Asian cultures. And the diaspora has certainly changed things. But it's very much rooted in Chinese culture. But Chinese culture, and we'll do a whole podcast on this, is kind of governed by Chinese traditional Chinese social interactions, aka the kind of interactions that children of the diaspora see in their like the older generations. Very much rooted in like 3 concepts that I will very, very much simplify right now, but it's reciprocity, getting people to owe you things, and how people perceive you. And there is so much nuance to explore there, and each of us will have different experiences with it. But to kind of take the complexities of traditional Chinese social interaction and boil it down to you lose face, you lose everything, is just so insulting. It's very insulting. Very insulting. But let's keep reading.
You actually read some of this last night.
I did. Yeah, I did.
I'm like,
you did. You did.
I heard about this. Jacky told me, and I was like, why? Why did you do this?
But it is in the protection of this also the whole idea of honor and face and everything they're kind of different.
They are.
Honor and face are not the same.
They're not the same.
They really are not.
Like, but it is in the protection of this honor that the Shou citizen differs from other denizens of KaraTur. For example, the haughty samurai. Oh yeah, I did read this last night. Yeah. The haughty samurai of Wa and Kozakura. And this is the most important to consider when dealing with the Shou people, where the samurai. Yeah, I remember reading this last night. where the samurai must walk about with hand to like.
Just
where the samurai must walk
just
around
with
hand to sword hilt, ready to wipe an insult out in
just
blood.
Walking like this all the time, glaring at everyone.
Did you insult me? The Shou is far more subtle. Not all insults must be settled by blood. First of all, that's further reinforcing this like barbaric Japan.
Yeah.
In fact, it is sometimes preferable to avoid bloodshed. Yeah, no shit. As this will bring out the magistrate and his guard. Oh, law enforcement. Being condemned for murder is an even greater stain upon the family honor.
I mean, murder in general is pretty much... It's murder. It kind of
D&D though has always cast itself as the exception, since everyone's a murder hobo.
Oh, don't forget! Remember, Gary Gygax himself even coined the. It's perfectly okay for the lawful good paladin to murder all the goblin babies.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. That sure was a thing.
That was actually a thing.
He prefers to give insult or avenge it in more indirect ways, by ruining a reputation, by bringing a great estate to bondage, by assassination, or by publicly beating his opponent senseless in the street with his superior kung fu. What is
I don't even know what that sentence was.
What is most important to the show is the honor of the family clan, not himself. Insult a Shou and you have merely angered him. Insult his parents and you have incurred the vengeance of his entire clan. Harm his children or siblings, and no force in the celestial heaven will save you from his wrath. Such is the power of family in this land. It's important to remember the subtle differences of the Shou character. Unlike a Kozakuren, a Shou citizen who blusters, bullies, or brags is considered a buffoon and loses tremendous face. In a culture of such great antiquity and civilization, it's more important to be cool and sophisticated, even if you are a peasant. When playing a Shou character, remember to always reach for an insult before reaching for your sword.
In that
Why
order.
am I reliving?
You're like, fuck you, and then pull your sword.
Fuck you, okay, I did it.
I do appreciate the distinction that beating someone senseless in the street is more indirect than, murder. Which,
No, it's beating someone senseless with your superior kung fu.
Yes.
Yes, that is technically accurate.
This is like an terrible Asian stereotype, like salad or something. Like, it's got, in that one sentence, we've got the Fu Manchu kind of thing where it's like, oh, being underhanded, and then assassination is like, oh, like ninjas, and then the freaking like kung fu. What the fuck?
This is the Cobb salad.
This is the
It's
Cobb salad
of Asian
salad of
fantasy.
stereotypes. Oh my god.
It's all of the movie tropes in particular.
Yes.
There's that view of a really like rough and uncouth samurai is a movie trope. It's a character type.
Mm-hmm.
Like
You also have just the duplicitous, petty Asian characterization and how the Shou are, all insults and all of that. So you've got it's all here, all the
you've got
greatest
the yellow
hits of
pearl.
Asian. Yeah.
You've got the Fu Manchu. You've got like
also like I love how
fighting.
they're like how they make it like a unique thing to Asian people. It's like, yeah, if you hurt their kids, they're gonna come after you. It's like,
oh, so Asian.
So Asian.
So Asian.
Europeans who are fine with
Europeans
you
clearly have no care for their children whatsoever.
Yeah,
Oh,
Well,
well, I mean,
just
those
let their
European
kids
boarding
do
schools
whatever.
do make you wonder.
It's
And
true,
then,
actually.
20. Well, to be fair, then that's where you get the kid eating paste in the corner. But okay.
Yeah, it's just like there's stuff here that's.
Well, the thing is, though, too. Remember the time period this was made. It was also like when they were probably the writers were probably exposed to a lot of the '70s media, Asian media. So that's like a lot of like the Pai Mei stuff, Daniel, and like all the samurai, the '70s samurai,
But that's the thing. But here's the thing: those were all made by Asian people.
I know. But have
But
you ever
they
heard
were-
the English dub versions of them?
Yeah,
and they were taken out of context.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, they're
So
taking it out of context.
not understanding the archetypes and tropes of like
Yeah.
Jidaigeki, like the Japanese samurai movies, like not knowing that male character is a type, and that's just being like, this is Japan, this is
And-
Japanese
and-
men.
Yeah,
Similar with
no.
with wuxia movies during that time. I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, we might as well just have with his superior kung fu fighting, with his fists fast as lightning.
Oh my god! I didn't catch that, but in this they actually talk about them flying around.
Yeah, flying around.
And
Earlier,
I didn't
wires.
catch that. I was like,
On-
oh, it's the wuxia like flying around thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a really, when Facebook first started, there was a really funny group that I joined called Yes, Asians Can Fly. And it was basically just a group of other Asian folks, which is like, yeah, we fly. That's a thing we do.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's
Depending on the
real.
era, depending on the
in
era,
those innocent before times when Facebook wasn't a democracy.
Oh, this was back when you needed a college.edu email address to join.
Yeah, back when it was Oh, what a time that was.
Okay, so let's keep moving. I'm gonna try to get us to one page. 40 minutes to get us
go,
there.
Daniel, go.
All we have to do is finish the clan, and then we hit one page.
We can do it.
Hey, at least we have an excuse for every first Saturday of the month to hang out, because we're never gonna finish this book.
It's like when it's like ordering from the 10th, getting through the 10,000 dish menu.
Yeah. So the clan, the center of the Shou world is the clan. The clan is a tightly woven family, including grandparents, married children, grandchildren, servants, and even beasts. At the top of the clan hierarchy is the clan head, who is always the oldest male in the family, although occasionally a grandfather will abdicate his leadership in favor of a young son of 30 or 40, who has shown proper devotion and promise. The power of the clan head is absolute. He may choose who is to marry and to whom, where the fortunes of the family are to be spent, and who is to inherit and when. To question his will is to risk being cast out of the clan. To a Shou, this is the ultimate fear, for without a clan, a man has no one to call upon for help, no honor to shield him, and no good name with which to win a living or a bride. Who will take care of him when he is old? Who will speak for him when his good name is slandered? It is well known that those who lose their clan will soon set out upon the road of brigandage and dishonor. For without a clan, what is there to live for? The clan head is responsible to his family as well. He must provide food and shelter for them and cause no dishonor to the family name. When business with merchants or the government must be done, he must do it. If the government chooses to punish a clan member, the head or Tai must shield the offender. I get this reaction, sorry, distracted me. Must shield the defender from the emperor's wrath, even taking the punishment himself. He must find proper husbands and wives for his children, find them worthy occupations, and even support them if they are unable to find work. A dutiful member of the clan must show respect in all ways to his clan head. He will call him honored father, sir, or master. When he goes abroad...
Oh, but not Tai.
But not Tai.
Not Tai. No, thank God.
When he goes abroad to make his fortune in the capital, he sends money back to the clan. The clan determines what work he will pursue, unless they have no specific directions.
Okay.
What?
They'll do it unless they don't.
Okay. Even the choice of wife or husband must be approved by his clan head. But for this, the clan member has the security of knowing that no matter where he goes, he will have people to stand for him and the family honor and wealth to fall back upon. For all that the most adventurous, this is more than enough. In addition to those of the living, the clan encompasses the dead as well. Members of the clan who have achieved great things during their lives are remembered and honored. Their deeds are often spoken of in family histories. Yeah, that's what a family history is. Their deeds are, and sacrifices to their memories are made every festival or feast day. Children are often given the names of a great clan member of the past, in hopes that the child will one day live up the honor of his ancestor. DMs should use the clan to their advantage whenever possible. The clan head must direct a player character to perform certain tasks or take certain jobs. He may send the character to seek fortunes in strange new cities and lands. Clan emergencies may call the player from his normal duties. An insult to the clan's honor may force him to take the strongest action.
This is just, I don't know. It's like version of like, this sounds like The Godfather. It's just like, this was basically just Chinese version of The Godfather.
Which by the way, those movies were actually way better.
Yes.
I was waiting for them to put like, if somebody dishonors you, make a roll on this. Like,
I mean, to be fair though, I will say though, they literally, from an editorial standpoint, they made the same point about 4 times in that entire section.
Yep.
Just like they need to, the clan head must choose the wife or husband. They must choose the wife or husband.
If you lose your clan, you're SOL. If you must stay with your clan. It's like, what is this?
I first of all love how they put Tai Tai in here with no context.
Yeah, I was like, Tai Tai?
Like,
what is
also,
Tai Tai?
Yeah, what is Tai Tai?
Like
the.
Go ahead.
Well, you could say that. Like sometimes that's what you call. It's a very respectful way of addressing like the grandma of the
like the matriarch
family.
The matriarch.
Yeah, the matriarch.
And that's interesting.
Okay.
But it's like they don't say that though, because here they're like it's all about the man, and then they throw in Tai Tai.
Like this part feels like definitely they were talking to some Chinese person, and the Chinese person just threw out the term Tai Tai, and they just thought, oh, that's an honorific that must belong to this position. It's like, no, they were referring to literally their matriarchal grandmother.
Yeah, and that's a huge blind spot this book has because it's so patriarchal. Like, Asian women are badass, just first off. And so many Asian families do have a certain matriarchal, matrilineal component to them. I know in Vietnam, for example, there's like the power of the matriarch is not to be trifled with.
Yeah, I mean, Vietnamese history is rife with strong matriarch. In fact, like many parts of Vietnam had a very strong matriarchal culture before Chinese occupation. We have like the Trung sisters, we have Bak Yu, like who just made her Civ debut. So
oh, cool.
Yeah, she made her Civ debut, and I was like playing her exclusively.
I was playing her exclusively.
I still haven't gotten my win with her yet, but she's awesome. But like it was my grandmother who said all 11 of our kids are getting an education, boys and girls both. Because like that was her decision, and that was not a decision that her husband argued with or fought. Like, that happened.
I have two issues with this section. One, of course, is the fact that it's like that aspect of like the marriage thing is not accurate. Like,
yeah.
Well, actually, no. The first thing what I'm going to talk about is how this is very like upper, or I guess like upper middle class kind of structure that they're talking about. The whole like the wealth and support of your family, that ain't a thing when you're just like a serf, right? Like, or you're just like living your life. Like, yes, you still care about your family and stuff like that, but it's not like the structure is not as tight, because ain't nobody got time for that. You're trying to survive, right? So I feel like that's one thing that I find kind of interesting, where it's like, so everyone who is technically so are like kind of well off. Like, again, farming, how does this work? What about all the other people who can't afford to have this kind of like power, basically, and to actually have a big clan, right? Like, it just. So that's one thing that I'm like, oh, interesting.
Player characters, though, do tend to be more wealthy, so that might be part of that. Like,
right?
Because this is very clearly intended for a PC. Like, reading through the clan, I can see that they're describing a dynamic that the player character should be expected to uphold and contend with.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, of course, this like sometimes they're like really accurate on the things that you don't want to be accurate. For example, they're so accurate about like like Chinese racism towards other people.
Oh yeah. 100%.
And then sometimes on things you're like, okay, but this is also inaccurate. So for example, the marriage thing, like usually it is the matriarch of the family who, like, this is true, right? Like arranged marriage is used to be a thing for literally everyone in the world. But it would usually be like within a patriarchal family structure, it would usually be the matriarch, and Chinese culture was no exception. So it's just like,
yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's just like, if you want to like go into so much detail about this, why can't you just get it right?
Here's the thing. Like, first of all, like, let's be honest, my grandma runs the show.
Feel like that's a common story.
but like, Agatha, you mentioned there are like things that they get like really, really accurate, and there are things that are just like blatantly wrong. And the things that they get accurate are like the things that don't even need to be in here. Right? Like, yeah, Chinese racism is like a real thing. And we are still feeling the repercussions of that. We talked about the model minority myth and, how there is like a ton of resentment against Chinese people, but also that Chinese people are hella racist against other Asians. It's like a thing.
Yeah.
But like, that doesn't mean it has to be in your fantasy campaign setting. That's another thing. It's like, we want to go for like, and I go back to what I said at the very beginning. And it's like, you don't need to be offended. It's not real. Or it's like, it's not fantasy China. But at the same time, it's like trying very hard to be as like authentic as possible. I say that with air quotes for those listening to the audio version of this. Like, it's trying to be as authentic as possible. And it's like, no. It's there's this really awkward line between authenticity and, like this like fantasy inspiration. And the KaraTur campaign setting, and honestly, if we look at like Al-Qadim as well, they just go so wrong.
Well, like, part of that is the problem of authenticity as a concept. Like, authenticity is largely determined by the receiving audience more than anything else. And there's a real, like, the concept of the gaze, that the person doing the looking is the one determining what happens because they want to see certain things. And so authenticity gets wrapped up with that, in that this non-Chinese, non-Asian audience is determining what is supposed to be in the setting to make it feel right to them, which often means make it feel weird enough to them that they believe that it's fantasy Asia in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an exotification. It's an other. It's a continuation. It's a continuation of the otherization of what's going on. It pairs really nicely in this terrible Cobb salad with the other ingredients. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's disturbingly striking that the thing that they got most right, quote unquote, is the racism. Like, it says a lot about the perspective of the authors. And it doesn't, like, it says a lot, and a lot of that, like, ain't good.
Yeah.
Yeah. They. Yeah,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Emma. Yeah.
About clan, because this sounds more like family.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes.
which is why
clan isn't necessarily equivalent to family.
Yeah.
This read so much more like The Godfather. Like, I was hearing like an Arhu version of like the Godfather theme, and then like turning around in a swivel chair, just like, "You have come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding." I have arranged as the head of the family.
It's here's the thing, like clans are like a real thing, right? And we see them today with, with like the benevolent associations and things like that. Those are very much like clan organizations. But the thing here that they kind of miss is like, they've described the family plus servants and beasts. It's like, okay, pets, sure. And like your livestock, okay, they're your property, but okay. But they've added like servants, sure. But if I were to say clan, I would have maybe talked about, interconnected networks of familial allies.
Yeah, because that's the thing. Like, historically in Japan, a clan is not all blood and marriage relatives. There are multiple families made up of multiple households that all have some sort of social, political pact together.
Like, literally, they
that's true.
Because we have been making an active effort to try to say what we would do better. I think in the first sections, the stature and spirit, I just get rid of it all. Just chuck it. It doesn't need to be here. Honor is like, if you're gonna do this honor thing, I wouldn't have honestly called it honor, and I would have just gone with the concept of face and social interactions and elaborate to great detail, because that would actually make for very interesting role playing. For the clan. First of all, like, yeet that last paragraph where it's like, oh, as a DM, fuck with the players. Like, that's basically what they said at the end of this. I get rid of that. That's just like, I'll chalk that up to old school role playing. But with this clan thing, they could have made it so much more interesting if they had simply said, yeah, you know what? Clans are made of these interconnected families that are bound not only by marriage, but by, treaties and things like that. Or even you could say treaties and reciprocity. You could link it to face. How cool would that be, right? Link it to face. And then at the head, don't give it like a single person.
Don't give it like a tie-tie.
Don't give it a tie. Honestly.
Yeah, that's the name of the movie. The tie-tie.
I would be okay. I think it would be hilarious. And also like really, really like, I guess it was like mad deja vu if it was just like, a table. There's like this great table with like a lazy Susan in the middle, and it's just all the grandmas sitting around it, and they control everything.
It would certainly be more authentic, right?
It'd be way more accurate. And I think it would be super badass.
And not to mention the amount of snark and sass being tossed at each other while they're serving each other tea, and God forbid they're playing mahjong.
Do not bring mahjong into that equation.
No.
But here's the thing. But here's the thing, though. You know how they've kind of talked about like insults? Like, you could take this insult thing because people are kind of always doing that. And the old grandmas and grandpas are like insulting each other. It's like, oh, my grandson's a doctor. Oh, your granddaughter is only a pharmacist. Like they do shit.
Oh my god.
It's like
look,
so good.
Like,
I have a grandson who's a lieutenant in the army now. Ha ha.
My daughter got married to an engineer.
And it's
like, I heard that your child has been trying to study for this exam for how long now?
How long? How many times have they failed the bar?
And they've all got cats. I love it.
Yeah. They've all got
cats.
Like,
so intense.
See, this is already so much better, right? You have just like this network of very like it could be very, very powerful people. We don't even have to like just say it's all the grandmas. It could just be powerful people in these families who wield their influence together and against each other.
Right.
And there's so much room for like interesting intrigue here, and it's really just like you gotta listen to this one old dude.
Yeah. Can I call out a nugget I did like? Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah. No, go ahead. I've been speaking.
Yeah, just a nugget I did like. One thing I did appreciate though is talking about how those who can't support themselves, the clan is obligated to help them. This is something that I've seen in my personal life. I'm part of a fairly large family, and we had an uncle who, honestly, my hypothesis is that he has some major undiagnosed anxiety issues, and he could not work because being social with people is too much for him. And I saw through my life how my family kind of moved and kind of worked around it, and it was seen as a nuisance. Like, he wasn't highly regarded due to the problems he had, but the family worked very specifically to find a solution. Similarly, I had a cousin who had some struggles with addiction and things like that, and we as a family, we sat down and we're like, okay, what are we doing about this? How are we going to make this work? And I do think that's very important, because that is something that you see in these larger Asian families, is we will, And you won't see it outside the family. And that's the big thing is, yes, these things are kind of viewed as shameful, but within that context, the family will still marshal their resources and figure out a solution. And they'll do it internally. No outsider's going to see everything that happened, but the end result will be, we'll figure out a way to make this work.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's pretty true, because everything's handled, behind closed doors, because that is a part of holding up to your face in a sense of how people perceive you. So, it is a big thing, especially in Chinese culture, where no one should know that you're struggling if you can avoid it. And it can sometimes be very detrimental. So I like this part here for me. I just felt like there, like we've already kind of explored, is like there was so much that they could have done differently, and like it just feels very shallow, and like a lot of the parts that you could hopefully bring in some nuance, like it's not there. It's just not there.
Another thing, I do kind of want to counter what you said, Daniel, about the DM section, where it's like they should use the clans to their advantage whenever possible. I do see what you mean in terms of like if you're running a very like standard D&D campaign, then maybe like if the attitude is the DM throwing troubles at the players, they might see it as an adversarial relationship. But I do think like actually this could be very interesting. Like this is, when I read it, I didn't see it that way, coming from a much more like the way that I read it was like, oh yeah, like these are like, as a player, I would love to have more like interesting things come up from my background that like cause trouble for me, because I find that narratively interesting. So I'm not really sure. So I think if we were to make KaraTur better as a supplement book, in the present, I wonder if that might not be as troublesome now. You know what I mean?
Yes and no. So you come at this from like the perspective of being like a story gamer.
Right.
And something like this, if you were to keep that bit, it would have to be a cultural shift in the way that you expect the game to be played. Right?
Okay.
Like we're talking about a time when like, Gary Gygax writes like the Tube of Horrors because people were coming to him at cons and saying that like, oh, your stuff's too easy, challenge me. Or these books came out at a time when it was meant to be this almost adversarial relationship between the DM and the players, right? Rather than a back and forth conversation, right? From like your perspective, I get it. Like if your relationship at the table is like, yeah, these are things I want to explore, please do that, then yes, 100%. But that's not really talked about here.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and there's and this is also comes from a pattern. We see this in all of the other AD&D books when they say, here's how you can basically fuck with the players. So yeah. But like, I totally get where you're coming from. Like, if you were to keep it, you could be like, hey, if you talk with your players about this, here's what you could do. Or you can color code it or put certain sections where it's like interesting player interactions and then do it that way.
There is a lot of space to do good things with this. It's just, the 80s mindset was definitely not that.
There was not that.
Yeah. I'm going to speak as a recent generation of TTRPG players and GMs. Like I was not I've always heard of like yes, DM versus player, like, or GM versus player, haha, in like a joking context, but like I didn't realize that was a real adversarial relationship. Like that sounds pretty toxic.
Yeah, like I have a friend like way back in high school, and he was known for just constantly trying to just like kill characters. And like in games, he just if you disagree with me, like, okay, you're dead, and that would be it. Right? And that's like a real thing. Like I have seen lots and lots of people like that. I'm in a game right now, and it's really funny because like I've talked about it a lot on our Discord server. It's like my characters just constantly die. But that's something that I am okay with because I've come to an agreement with our table that like Daniel's characters are cannon fodder in like in like a hilarious way. And it's like, okay, when's Daniel going to die next? And I'm all like, let's see when I die next. But you kind of have to come to that agreement, right? There's just like, this is for the power tripping DM. Right? Just be like, the players are like, the way I see it, it's like, oh, the players are exploring something really interesting and they want to do something. And the GM's like, oh, I didn't plan for this. Okay, hey, you get a message from your family. You have to come back to the capital, go to work. As a tool to kind of drive players where they want the story to go. Right?
Yeah. Like that section definitely needs like a little bit, definitely needs a rewrite in order to fit to the more current play style that is more affluent. Especially like the way it's written, it is very, it still has like, it harkens a lot of that adversarial mentality, and so I can see this as something that could have belonged to a section that was like player backgrounds and things like that, because that would have made more sense. Like if you made an entire background that was called like clan member, okay, what does it mean to be a clan member? And then it's like you have in this, that little bit of like, you have like the benefits of having a residence available to you, because the clan, the clan's home is your home technically, and as well as the fact that they can provide you resources if you're struggling with something, but also, you know, it's a reciprocal, if they decide that there's something needed for the clan, they will ask you to come, and it's not something that you can't. And that's where you bring in back the nuance about face. It's like, you know, this is the reason you would do this is because you're reciprocating all the things that they give you as payment.
Yeah, there's actually like, you see this in some modern games too. Like, Coriolis has has an option for certain concepts where you can have like a wealthy family. And you can say use your family's wealth or knowledge of your family's wealth to influence social interactions, which is very interesting.
That is good.
Right? Yeah. It's really good, but it's all done from a narrative perspective. It's not like you get this bonus when doing this.
Right.
Like it's all social.
Yeah. It's one of the things I do want to, if we were to rewrite this as well, is one thing I would want to add is sort of how the concept of reciprocity and the focus on social equity and social relationships, it comes not just from a place of obligation, but also a place of affection, right? Because in these sorts of relationships, you don't do this unless you like the person. Yeah. You don't do this unless you're on the same page. You don't do this unless you care about them. So I think that's also really important, because I think one of the reasons why things like face, etc., get like lost in translation when it comes to Western culture is because there's a lot of emphasis on I think a lot of Western perspectives look at this as like a transactional relationship and less of anything to do with empathy or affection. So I would want to make sure that that is very much represented within the text.
Honestly, as a designer, like I see a lot of fun potential in this clan space to design. You know, you can build mechanics around it, you can build plot hooks around it. There's so much to work with here. And I do think, you know, credit where credit's due. I think this is a good direction for them to be placing player characters in. Like, I think this has a lot of potential in both narrative and mechanics standpoints. I would enjoy building out a system based on this kind of idea of family and clan. I think it would be very interesting. And you see it with L5R, but I don't think L5R necessarily captures the tightness of that more close familial unit, since their conception of clan is basically a nation.
Yeah.
But yeah, like this would be very interesting design space to work within.
Yeah, it's because we want to not only like capture the structure of things, but also the intimacy of those relationships, right? Like there's a lot of really good potential here to dive in deep into, like if you're a storytelling kind of GM, like it's a deep, like I love delving into feels in my games. And I kind of feel like this is a great opportunity to, you know, yes, you've got the social obligation to your tai or whatever, but like you also, maybe there's another kind of love there. There's a love there. And I think that, I don't know, maybe I'm just being a hippie because I'm from San Francisco, but I'm like,
but there are emotions.
Love into this.
Yeah, there are emotions in this, and not to mention, like in a lot of different Asian stories that involve a clan, there's always the stories about like the clanmates, like the clan sibling that you basically grew up with. Like those are like great narrative elements that you can still portray. Like it would be like, as Austin said, like if we were to expand it, there's a lot of room for adventure hooks. You got complications with the clan. I mean, you can do a whole lot with it, in terms of like where you sit in the position of the clan, because you know it could be about things like the things you do for the clan maybe puts you in a better position, or the rest or part of your family in a better position within the clan. And you know, the other thing is too, I'm not gonna lie though, in every clan there's always something about a secret family recipe.
At least one.
That's yeah.
It always comes back to food though, and how the fact that there's not the acknowledgement of food in this book is frankly the most heinous of all.
But what about the 10,000 delicacies?
Yeah, what about the exactly?
Which still managed to make food stupid.
I just wondered
how do you do this?
I like Emma's idea.
I'm just hoping that the 10,000 delicacies is actually like 10,000 different delicacies. Like it's basically like an oversized dim sum menu.
Oh, that's 100% what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Well, it's either that or it's their terrible rehashing of a Buddha delight, and I'm really going to be upset even more if it is.
No, it's literally just like one of those restaurants, and they serve like they have like 100 different sandwiches, except it's 10,000 different Chinese dishes.
Or you can make a chart that has that number
now I
of
just feel bad.
iterations.
Now I feel really bad.
Oh, yeah.
Now I feel really bad for the cart lady.
Oh yeah, it's true. Or you can make. I feel like you can make a table, and it was like design your own dish, and you can like roll several times, and it would create a dish for you. Could do it that way.
I mean, that's kind of how Taco Bell works, right? They just have the same ingredients, and they just try to like configure them in different ways, and that's how you get like the Nacho Supreme.
That's the Stormcrow approach to burgers too.
Exactly. Yeah. So I kind of feel like maybe that's how they get 10,000 dishes. It's like the Taco Bell approach.
Oh, the Stormcrow.
Roll for vegetables.
We create different tables for like carbs. It's like the Chipotle menu. You get like carbs, the wrapping.
I mean, I'm thinking back to when my family used to own a takeout, and like our family's takeout had over 65 dishes on that menu. It was 4 pages long, and yeesh, there was a lot in there.
Yeah, we're like my partner and I like once a month we go and get takeout from this place called Kanji Queen. They have a couple of locations in Toronto. It's real good. What? I get that. What?
The shade coming from Agatha.
I feel like what we need is to get Kanji Queen to sponsor us, because every single time we're like takeout, you're like Kanji Queen,
Kanji Queen, yo. Yo, Kanji Queen, iconic Toronto Chinese restaurant chain. But yeah, we get Kanji Queen, and their menu is just like. We just get the usual, but like, I would love like a food supplement. Honestly, I love
their fish kanji.
Oh, I'm always a big fish kanji person.
You know what we should do? Because we're gonna. I feel like next time we should just get Chinese food or Asian food, because we're not all Chinese here. And for the next one, we should get food and have like a lunch and read.
Oh,
that would be nice.
Brunch.
I got
a brunch. Oh, it would be a brunch for you, Michelle.
Brunch for us West Coasters.
Yeah,
for us West Coasters, brunch.
Good thing my aunt had just prepared a huge batch of our family's secret egg rolls. So we always, because I have spent my entire lifetime looking for better egg rolls.
But here's what we'll do though. We'll take it out of the Asians Represent budget, and we can pay for everyone's brunch/lunch.
Aww.
But Daniel, where are you going to order from?
I don't need an order from anyone. My family makes. My family used to.
Jacky's just gonna eat his 5 a.m. bulgogi.
Yeah.
God, I want bulgogi.
It's gonna be
no Korean restaurants near us.
I think if I say it enough, Kanji Queen will sponsor us.
It's just like you're manifesting it.
Yeah, just sending it out there. If you're watching this, call Kanji Queen in Toronto.
Write them a letter.
Write them a letter.
Tell them the sponsor Asian represents.
Yo, honestly, if like Panda, what if Panda Express came, and I say this specifically because of Michelle, what Michelle said. Panda Express was like, yo, we want to sponsor Asians Represent. What would we say? We want to sponsor the KaraTur stream. I don't even know.
I don't even know what I'd say.
They have to make a dish specifically called 10,000 Delights. Or
10,000 Delights.
Yeah.
What I would do is negotiate the contract to be like, do we have to say that it tastes good? Or can we just say that we're sponsored by them?
Can we just say that we're sponsored by them? Do we have to eat the food on camera?
Do we actually have to praise their food?
Honestly, if there's gonna be like a
legit.
food sponsor, it's gonna be a bubble tea sponsor. It's gonna be a boba sponsor.
Oh my
gosh,
gosh,
that's fair.
Heck,
Like
yes.
I'll drink it every stream.
Vaguely
I
know the guys.
Get an Oasis.
I can try to head up the people who for boba guys in the Bay Area.
See, the thing is, we have to find one that, since most of our audience is in North America, we have to find one that's in both Canada and the U.S. Because how crazy would that be if we got like an American boba sponsor and like Agatha and I can't even drink it because he can't get it here in Toronto?
Oh,
that's a fair point.
That is a fair point.
Make me real sad. Or like if we got like a Chow Bus sponsorship. Right.
Oh,
Chow Bus is like Asian Uber Eats.
Yeah.
Oh.
Do we have it in?
Yeah, we do.
Toronto?
Yeah, we do.
Oh.
They always have good deals. That said, we have gone 1.25 pages today.
Yeah.
We did.
Like I said, under promise, over deliver.
1.25 pages
strategy.
So to kind of do an overview, we've gone over the spirit of the show, the stature of the show, the honor of the show, and the clan. We would completely cut out the spirit and stature sections because they trash. We would reframe the honor section to be one about like face, reciprocity, things like that. And the clan one, we would basically say, no, this is what a clan actually is. And just kind of like change how it's structured. Because I feel like the clan one was the one that is most easily salvageable out of these four.
Or sort of like have family and clan.
Yeah.
As slightly separate things.
Right. Talk about the dynamics of family in a clan, and as well as family, the inter-family dynamics inside of that. So it's like you get that.
I'm
making
terms,
an
it's like a
adventuring
subset.
party, all different families within the same clan too, would be really cool.
Oh,
That'd be super cool.
Yeah.
Right, you could start, if you said you start your adventure and then everyone's from a different family and they each have their own agendas.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's actually really cool.
That'd be really
That's like
cool
the web novels I've been reading.
Yes.
Agatha's on board if we do it that way.
Oh, heck yes.
I want to write this adventure now, like just like make everyone part of like the same clan. So like everyone knows each other's grannies. And they know like which ones they really don't
You're the
piss
favorite.
off.
You're the favorite.
Yeah.
You're the golden child. You're the pharmacist.
I won't lie though. I actually am the most favorite grandchild.
Oh, me too.
So unfortunately, like all my cousins are like, "Why are you getting treated better?" Because I was the first, and I'm still the first.
I'm the first. I am the first son's first son.
Yeah.
I am.
Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah.
I'm
My
not
grandmother
because
loved
I'm
my
not
little sister because she
man.
had all of these positive traits that were like a boy. And grandma just didn't say much about me. So
my mom was the first child, and she is the most loved by the family because she's the eldest and the most responsible. And my grandfather always says that he regrets that she wasn't born a man.
I feel like there's like an interesting party dynamic that you can do with our revised KaraTur Shou Lung clan that we should do in the future. But right now we have to focus on Fish in the Fog. Our comedy noir
comedy
shot
noir
set in Wakan, the land that looks at Japan.
Am I the token human, or do we have?
I think you're still the token human.
I think
right?
you're the token.
I think
Still
you
the
are.
token human.
Because
You
okay,
need one.
so I'm a literal crab. I'm a crab. Emma's a squirrel.
I'm a human-sized squirrel. Yeah.
Human-sized squirrel. Jackie,
That's terrifying.
Jackie,
Yeah.
what are you? You're
I'm a turtle.
You're a turtle.
I'm a turtle person.
And then Austin,
I-
you're a human. Agatha, what
Yeah.
did you end up being?
I chose lizard folk, but I'm imagining like a salamander.
Oh yeah,
so,
yeah.
so not the gecko gecko, gecko
Geico
rather.
Gecko. Except
Yeah,
me.
the gecko gecko.
You do the commercials, Agatha? The Geico Gecko? Green,
The one who
green
saves
gecko?
20% on your car insurance.
You never see those commercials?
Geico
Looking for
sponsorship
sponsorships
coming.
here.
Okay,
No.
Geico, what's up?
Yo, get that gecko.
Get
money.
that
They might
Geico
honestly
money.
like they do some weird shit with their marketing.
That's
It's an
true.
interesting marketing campaign. I won't lie.
Again, like I feel like we'll hit peak podcast if we get a bubble tea sponsorship. If we get a bubble tea
Yeah.
sponsorship, that's like we made it, fam.
Okay, but real
Yeah.
question: between a bubble tea sponsorship and the Kanji Queen sponsorship,
Kaji Queen. It's like
the truth has been stated.
here's the thing though, but like from like a logistical perspective, Kaji Queen. If our audience was like all in Toronto, then yeah, Kaji Queen would be like the logical one.
yeah.
But our audience is global.
Yeah,
But,
we
like-
need like Cha Time to sponsor
Yeah,
us.
we like Cha
Oh,
Time would be one
yeah.
that I would go for.
I would dig a
Right?
shot.
Because I feel like that's everywhere, right? Cha Time's everywhere.
Yeah,
or-
Cha Time
there's one
does seem
here.
to be.
Yeah.
There,
Everywhere.
Florida is
Oh,
Florida.
it's
so
Florida.
We don't talk.
Like,
we don't talk about it.
it.
Florida, the Australia of the United States. I will reiterate
We don't
that
lie.
joke.
I've
We
never
don't
heard
lie
that joke,
about
and I
it.
think that's hilarious.
I came up with I said it early in the stream because it just came to me.
Yeah,
so.
no, like people say that to me all the time, and then not to mention, me and an actual Australian compared notes on trying to one up each other on how dangerous our relative places are.
I feel like animal-wise, Australia is more dangerous, but you don't hear
Yes.
like Australian man, but you hear Florida man.
I think the
Yeah,
thing is
well, I mean, Florida man is technically its own beast of nature, so
Oh, okay.
but the thing about Australia is that a lot of the wildlife that is considered dangerous there kind of occurred or evolved naturally, whereas like Florida, you have like
It's
literal
all
gators
invasive.
addicted to meth. Like
That's
that's not
true.
natural.
I feel like there's like a campaign setting there, and it's like meth-addicted gators are going to be in your monster manual. You're going to have your Burmese
So,
pythons.
The stature of the Florida man.
And instead of like
so funny, yeah.
instead of
so
the
funny enough-
ranger, you have like the professional hunter who
so
goes
funny
after
enough,
these
Palladium did a Florida setting for Rifts. I've read that thing. It is wild.
We actually set our first Valor actual play in Florida in our modern fantasy setting. Like
Yes.
there was a Disney World and everything that they went to.
I remember
That's
when
wild.
the JoJo manga, like they did the panel where they shows Port St. Lucie, and I'm like, that does not represent the actual Port St. Lucie at all. Where did you get this image? It is not Port St. Lucie.
Jackie got like real angry at this depiction of Florida.
Because they were like depicting Port St. Lucie as like this modernized, high sky rising city, and I'm like, it is not that high.
Okay, I was about to say, is this the first time Jackie's going to defend Florida on stream?
I like that we started
have
with
to-
Florida, we'll end with Florida.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
it's
said,
so
full
true.
circle.
that said, it is. We have reached our 2-hour mark. We not only read a page, but we read a page and a quarter. So I'm very proud of us. I thought like I love doing this every month, and I'm happy that we got to talk about this on like Asian Heritage Month, because I think that's super important. But yeah, socials are on screen or in the podcast notes. Jackie's got a Kickstarter campaign that is currently going on right now. What's it called again, Jackie?
Eldritch Sands. And you can find it on Kickstarter, and it is a post-apocalyptic arcane punk setting, and it's based very heavily inspired by 70s and 80s sci-fi, things like Bubblegum Crisis, and you got things like magic mech suits, domed cities in a desolate wasteland, and you also have terrible eldritch horrors that lie in the machines.
Sick. And if you just go to eldritchsands.com, you'll be taken to the campaign. As of this live stream / recording, it is 50% funded with 28 days to go. So go fund that. The art looks dope. Can't wait for y'all to do it. If you've just tuned in, don't worry. This will be on YouTube the following Wednesday and our podcast feed as well. We've got some dope stuff coming up. Next week on Friday, we are going to be revisiting Strixhaven on the wrap up. I'm sorry, Michelle.
Yep.
I'm sorry, but you told me to wait. You said, can we do next Friday?
No. Yes. And I thank you for that. I think it's good to sort of have those feelings and sort of sit on them for a little bit, and really develop some thoughts. But yes, we're going to be returning to Strixhaven. Sigh.
Big
and
sigh.
then later we'll demonstrate how to do a magical school that doesn't suck.
Yeah,
exactly.
Oh, yeah,
so,
that's a great. Oh,
well
Austin.
done.
Austin.
Well done.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Content. Hashtag content.
Content.
Yeah. So I'm super excited for all of the stuff that we've got going on this month. Y'all are awesome. If you are watching on YouTube and you want to see our podcast feed, because we've got a whole bunch of content that is just never going to be on YouTube or never going to be on Twitch. Asians Represent is available on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can find all of that at aznsrepresent.com. We also have a Simplecast link, which is where everything is hosted through the One Shot Network. That's aznsrepresent.simplecast.com. Jacky, Austin, Emma, Michelle, and Agatha's co-host, thank you for this Saturday morning / afternoon. I'm very excited that we got through this. Next time on Asians Read Kara-Tur, we'll have food, and we'll be reading The Way of Work.
Yeah, it's a long section.
It's a very long section. Wow.
Yeah. We are
almost done with this chapter or whatever it's called. So we've got a page and a half to go. I think we can do it. I believe in us.
And then we're gonna get to social customs.
Oh, and then we'll get to this
way.
And also this really weird picture.
Yeah. We've got this art to deal with over here. That's gonna be interesting. I'm excited because then we're gonna get back into martial arts. So I suspect, I wonder if we'll have to grab another guest for this one. We'll figure something out. But yeah, thank you folks for tuning in. Y'all are awesome. And we'll see you next month. First Saturday of every month, we stream this live.
Yeah.
And, check out this crew because they appear on other Asians Represent things. Y'all are awesome. Bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye. Stay safe.